So you're Blues captain Ryan O'Reilly, and you want a haircut that's as custom as your stick curve. At Great Clips, we save your haircut details in clip notes, so you get your signature look every time. We got you, and you got this. Great Clips, official hair salon of the NHL.
Joining us now from the Bell Center in Montreal, our draft insider from Elite Prospects, their director of film study. Our pleasure to welcome Mr. Cam Robinson back to Sekeres and Price. How you doing, my man?
Oh, having just the time of my life over here. This draft is something else, I tell you. This is my third live one, and it's by far the most fun, for sure. This is crazy stuff.
Well, we met you all those years ago in Dallas as a wide-eyed doe, first-time draft guy, and we fell for you then. So great to have you back talking drafts, my man. And it looks like you guys had a good time last night in Montreal, as one does.
Yes.
Hard to avoid that, really.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't have fun in Montreal, just give up. Right. You can't have fun anywhere. Congratulations. A few days ago, you said to us, Jonathan Lekkerimäki might be one of those guys who people thought would go higher and slide to the Canucks at 15th overall. Sure enough, he did.
Here he is. Yep. And I called it, too, that I thought if he was there, that he would definitely be the guy. I think that they did really like Liam Öhgren, and that if Lekkerimäki went a minute earlier, that he would have been the guy. So it was going to be a Swede no matter what. But, the Canucks, they've got themselves a very dynamic scorer, one of the younger players in the crop, too, and there's a very high upside. At this part of the draft, I think it's a great upside pick.
He's already excelled with the men, as we were noting. He also played alongside, like, Öhgren and had some comparables there right along on his team and seemed to just be okay with the men's game at an earlier age. I mean, that's, again, there's no guarantees in this world, but I do think that's a nice early sign that playing with the smarter, bigger, faster players didn't flap him at this young age.
No, you're absolutely right. And, playing up with Djurgårdens in the SHL there is that they gave him the offensive minutes. And they gave him it for two reasons. One, because he could hang with those guys. He had the skill to do it. He had the shot. He has the hands. The second reason is that, they couldn't really put him in the bottom six because that's not his game, where a guy like Liam Öhgren could move around the lineup and do those things. But so Lekkerimäki, he is an offensive player first and foremost. I think he's still 17. I don't think he turns 18 for another couple of weeks here too. So to, like you said, Blake, to play up in the SHL and find some success there, put up some points. I think he led all draft eligibles in points per game. He didn't play as many games as Marco Kasper, who led all draft eligibles. But yeah, so on a per-game basis, he was probably the most impactful draft eligible in the top Swedish league, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Did you say the other day he's maybe the best goal scorer in the draft?
I did.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I'd say arguably has the best one-timer. He's lethal on the power play with that. And then, his wrist shot is very, very deadly. I was just talking to Uffe Bodin there, and he was saying that Lekkerimäki's favorite player, Elias Pettersson. So we're going to have some fun together maybe here too.
Yeah, we heard he wears 40 in honor of EP 40. How's his skating?
Skating's good. Good skater. Yeah, across the board, plus skills, plus hands, plus shot. The skating's going to wash out above NHL average, I would say. We're expecting that the physical maturity is going to come along here too, right? As he gets stronger, because he's not the biggest guy, not the heaviest guy at this point. That speed should probably improve even more, the straight line speed. The kind of knock on him at this point is, and it's not, not a lot of people saw it or didn't vocalize it anyways, is that he can sometimes rely on his hands a little bit too much at the junior level, and could miss some better opportunities to move the puck quickly. But that's a teachable thing that you can work out of a player too.
Now, there was some fallers. The fallers that you talked about, were there. Was this the right pick? It sounds like you like the guy. You sounds like you like the player. You like the pick. Was there a better one, though, still? Or do you think this was the right one for them?
Well, I'm a Liam Öhgren guy. I had him number 8 on my board, so I definitely would have preferred that myself. But I think that pure upside, Lekkerimäki has it. So, like I said, at this point of the draft, swinging on big upside, you can't go wrong with that. I was just chatting with an NHL scout who his whole job is to scout European prospects. And I said, who'd you like better? And he said, I had him back-to-back, but I'm a Lekkerimäki first. So I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with that then. I guess that's your job. You probably might have a pretty good input on it. So, I think it's a good pick. And for me, I probably would have gone Öhgren myself, but I'm against the grain for most.
Purely a winger, Cam? Does he have any chance to play the middle?
Think so. He's a pure winger, and that's probably why he fell. And that's why Joakim Bell is also falling, is that kind of these smaller wingers, they're easier to acquire, right? That we're seeing the big-bodied centers and the defensemen going quicker, is that it's a harder asset to obtain.
He was rated as high as 8 by some scouting services. Elite Prospects actually had him as the lowest of a lot of the, shouldn't say the lowest, I'm sure others had him lower, but Elite Prospects, the combined list had him at 18. Can you maybe take us into the discussions with your colleagues there as why he ranked out at 18, and where did you have him on your personal board?
I had him 17 on my board, and I had him higher than that throughout the season, and he did slide down a little bit for me. Just like I said, some of the IQ, and I'm not saying he's not a smart player on the ice, but there are some times where he can miss the best play available, and so that doesn't show a high level of intelligence on the ice, where you can often see some of these super smart players, and so a smaller winger who doesn't have maybe like elite IQ, those aren't super valuable all the time, right? And so that's why when everyone was talking that he was going to go 5, 6, 7, is that I didn't really think of him that highly. I think, like I said, though, the ceiling is very, very high. I'd say probably top 10 skill level in this draft, purely on skill alone, with the hands and the shot and the feet. So you put that together at pick 15, and I do like it.
And with that age, too, that you talked about, where the Canucks are with their top 6, you have to stagger this out. The fact that you get maybe an extra year, kind of a bonus year of development almost for him, because you don't need him in that early. With the way the Canucks are in their cycle, that kind of times out okay, I think, for the Vancouver Canucks, given that they need to see how a bunch of their other current top 6 players pan out before they open up any room for another young player.
For sure, and it's funny because after I released my board, I did raise the ire of a few NHL teams for where I put Lekkerimäki, and actually his J20 coach in Djurgården, he sent me a message just being like, didn't agree with my assessment, and I did say to him is that normally I do give these young players a little bump. I'm a big believer in that. You could be 10 months younger than some of the other players in this crop. 11 months younger that's huge at this stage of the game, right? Like there's so much development that can happen in that time frame for a 17-year-old. And I didn't end up giving him that bump. And I'm not sure if that was conscious or not. I probably should have. So, maybe after the fact we can give him that bump, and I'll just slide him in at 15 here on my make-believe board, and we'll call it a day.
You nailed it again at 15. Yeah, there you go.
Cam, is he willing to go to the dirty areas, play between the dots, or is he more of a perimeter scorer right now?
He will get to the inside. Yeah, no, he's not pushed to the outside too often. And he was doing that at the SHL too. Like if you watch some of his highlights, like he's banging in the front of the net and going for rebound goals too. So he's not afraid to get in there. He's not a big-bodied guy, so he's going to have to be smart when he's doing it, especially at the NHL level. But no, I do think that he'll be able to get through the dotted line there in the NHL.
But not Hoglander-like attitude, not quite to that level.
No, he's not malicious. He doesn't have that mean streak to him. That's for sure.
How many years out do you think he is from playing in the NHL?
I mean, if he was playing for the Canucks in 2024, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that would probably be the earliest, though. I don't expect him to push for a job before that, but you never know with some of these kids, especially these skill guys. If you put them in a position to succeed and they have a good camp or they have a good preseason or something like that, then yeah.
Djurgården is down in the Allsvenskan this year. He had great success in the SHL for his age, but with 1 year of maturity and maybe an increased role, is the Allsvenskan like a nice spot for him to now flourish and be like a scoring leader on the team? I
actually really like it, and someone was asking me about the same thing for Liam Ugren, is that like, now they're going to play in the Allsvenskan, and that's down a league, and it's like, that's actually really good. Is that because a bunch of SHL vets are going to exercise their out clause to go play and sign for an SHL club, and the minutes for these kids are going to just shoot up. So all three of them, and Noah Ostlund, they should probably form the second line, I would imagine, for Djurgården next year and see power play minutes, probably get some special teams. I think it's actually a pretty good situation. And the Allsvenskan isn't a huge drop from the SHL.
No, it's a good league.
It is a good league, and especially the good teams, right? Like Djurgården will now push to get back up there this season, so they'll be one of the best teams in the league. And those three guys, and Lekkerimäki being the kind of prominent offensive player, will be the focal point of that offense too. So that'll give him a lot of good reps and a lot of good situations before maybe he crosses over the year after.
He did not make the Swedish World Junior team for the upcoming tournament here in Alberta. Now, as you say, 17, he's still 2 weeks away from being 18, and as we know, that's a 19-year-old's tournament. But is that a disappointment at all? Would you have liked to have seen him make that team? Was that realistic for him?
I mean, I didn't expect him to, and so it wasn't a surprise at all that he didn't. He'll be there next year. He'll be there at Christmas. I fully expect him to be for that one. But no, it's fine that he's not at this event. Like you said, it's a 19-year-old tournament, and these guys that these stronger teams, they very rarely bring 17-year-olds unless they're super elite.
Blake, if you're out of Lekkerimäki questions,
let's talk
wouldn't
about
mind
the
asking
nonsense.
him about the fireworks we saw at the start of the draft there, Cam. I mean, I guess we had all sort of heard it enough to be prepared to hear Slafkovsky is the first overall pick, but Nemec is the second, Shane Wright dropping to 4. What's your take on what happened here at the top of this unpredictable draft?
I personally loved every second of it. Mostly when Nemec went number 2 is because I think I'm the only person on the planet that had Simon Nemec number 2 publicly. And so I spent the entire year battling with the other scouts at EP ringside. Every draft meeting, every message in the Slack, it's me and Simon Nemec against the world. And so I got in there as soon as that happened with Eurosexo on the board and vindication, just feeling great about it. And then, I also tweeted that out. I'm not sure if you guys saw it. Is that as soon as Slafkovsky went 1, I was like, there is a very real world here where Shane Wright falls all the way to 4 because the buzz around was that Logan Cooley was going to Arizona, and if he didn't, it was going to be Cutter Gauthier. So yeah, Shane Wright. I mean, he's going to probably be a little bummed out that he went to 4. And I don't know if you guys saw the death stare that he sent the Habs table there after he got drafted, but he gets to pick Ron Francis's brain now. And like you couldn't ask for a better guy to have access to his brain because that's who he needs to be. That's the type of player he needs to become. And so to have that in Seattle and, now they've got Matty Beniers and Shane Wright down the middle, have fun Vancouver, right? In the Pacific. Like that is going to be trouble for a long time.
When you say you had Nemec at number 2, were you saying that in a ranking or in a mock? Because I wonder if it just makes a lot more sense at number 2 in a mock and ultimately in reality because of who was there at number 2 and the fact they have just drafted guys like, it wasn't just, but, Hischier and Hughes are relatively still young forwards that have come at the top of the draft for them. Was it time for them to make sure they had a more defensemen at the back end?
Yeah, no, I had Simon Nemec ranked number 2 on my board.
Right.
Yeah, for my mock, I had him 4 going to Seattle. That's where I thought he was going to end up. But I also projected Shane Wright to go 1. And I'm 100% sure that if Wright did go 1, Slafkovsky was going to New Jersey. So that was kind of the audible that happened when the dominoes started to fall just purely on that Montreal pick. And also a fun little tidbit, right up until Montreal made the pick, I'm told 3 people in the organization knew who they were going to take. They kept it so buttoned up. It's like impressively tight. I think that's pretty noteworthy.
Cooley over Shane Wright for Arizona. Sometimes you don't think someone's going to be there. You've done all your homework on one guy, and that's your guy, and you get locked in. Any chance that happened with the Arizona Coyotes? Because we were sitting there going, you could get Shane Wright this year and potentially Connor Bedard if you're the worst team next year. They opted for Cooley instead. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great point, Matt, is that you don't think someone's going to be there and you fall in love with a player at a spot and then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, what are we going to do? Well, we've researched this guy. This is the guy we like. This is the guy we're going to take. And now there is a valid debate between Wright and Cooley. They are different style players. Cooley is more dynamic. He tries more things offensively, creative, has better kind of explosive speed, whereas Shane Wright is the smarter player, the heavier player. He has the better release, a safer player. So for Arizona, they're swinging big, and they swing big on Logan Cooley.